traits and ethnic origins.
Okay. Thank you. This is joint with Chiara at the University of Florence. The questions we are dealing with is, they start with this idea that we had that there is an ability which we call strategic theory of mind, which is the ability to think about an environment as a strategic environment, which requires two conditions. One is a theory of mind of any order, the ability to reconstruct the thought process of the other. The other is recursive thinking, the ability to use the output of your thinking as the input for the next stage. So we did a study, this is a premise of this study, with Melissa and Itai at the University of Minnesota in 3 to 8 years old children. We wanted to find out when this ability develops. The test that we used in this study was matching pennies and beauty context reformulated for children of a very young age. And what we found is that this ability to perform the strategic theory of mind is well developed by age 6 to 7. And there is actually a very fast acceleration around year 6. So you see something stable. They don't understand what's really going on, that they change dramatically their behavior around 6 to 7. These abilities, you can see it already in the first move. So we give them the instruction, then we ask them to choose, and there is a difference that is already clear in the first move. So it has nothing to do with learning. It's more inference about the thought process. And is parallel and modulated by IQ. We used as measure of IQ a backward task, in the next study, a backward memory task. So children with higher cognitive ability get there first, about 1 year, if between the top to the bottom difference in IQ. We didn't look at personality traits. We didn't look at the implication, social implication of this. So this is what the next study is trying to do. To summarize what we see, these are two indices of sophistication on the y-axis of performance in the game, and it reaches a peak, as I said, around year 7, then it stabilizes for the games that we were using. They're fairly simple. There is a strange band here that I will come back to this in a moment. So that's the background. There is the strategic theory of mind, develops around 6 to 7, is almost discontinuous, correlated with IQ. What does it have to do with preferences, with personality traits? That's the next question. So for this study, we focus now on the critical age that we have identified, around 7. And
I have a quick question. Can you differentiate whether people understand the task or whether they are able to solve it?
What do you mean understand? Yes. What do you mean I understand the task? Can we deal with this question when I explain more in detail the game that I'm looking at? Because I think it's a very good question, but I think it has to be answered in the specific. I feel under time pressure, I must tell you. Well, yeah, should. Okay. Okay, so two new focuses is we want to understand better what is the role of IQ in a slightly different game and how it interacts with personality, and then we try to open a new direction of research. What does it have to do with the networking that happens in the class? What do I mean here? The classes that we will use, you'll see the school that we use have now a substantial fraction of immigrants. Diversified. So there is an interesting networking that is taking shape among children in this classroom, and we want to know how IQ, personality affect this networking. So in particular, I think it's a very important question, is how much of this networking and group and link among children follows ethnic national origin or personality and IQ lines. So here is an example. This guy that looks very much like me, who happens to be my son, there is with. And that's how networking now takes place. And I was wondering whether this is an example of a more general trend. I would like to understand how much people meet across IQ and personality lines rather than ethnic lines. Is the question clear?
Oh, yeah. I was thinking like maybe there's a general trend of white guys marrying Asian women, but that could just be my own personal perspective.
White guys of a certain.
Skinny white guys who play string instruments would be my specific hypothesis.
He plays the violin high IQ.
Yeah, we could talk about that during the I was kind of kidding, but
No, I understand, but this is a private, wealthy school. The schools that we are dealing with is more humble. It's a very different social background.
yeah.
What? Okay, so that's the question. The experimental design, data collected in 21 second grade schools. We had an experimental session which lasts about 1 day, total final sample of 450 children. Some of them have special needs, around 44, so sometimes they are excluded from the analysis. The schools were selected depending on who was wanting to participate. Conditional on that, the participation rate of children was very high. A child could participate only if the parent was giving consent. Teachers helped us a lot. They filled the 65 personality questionnaire, so we have on the children both what the children think of themselves and what the teacher think of the child. And so they gave us the grade on math and Italian, and they assisted us in classifying children depending on special needs and poor knowledge of Italian language, which is a problem here. The type of sample is approximately half and half male and female. This is the fraction of here, either born to a foreign couple or mixed couple. So it's about 30%, 28%, so it's a substantial fraction of children with a mixed background, and then only to Italian couple, 72%. Most of them have a sister. These are not very well, as standard now, most of them have the computer at home to give you an idea. Age is about this. Okay, 7 to 8, the vast majority of them. So it's where this change happens. Data on the children we have, personal information. We ask them to play an ultimatum game. Then a 30-item BFQ test. I will get to this more in detail in a moment. And then a KB test, which is an IQ test for children that I will describe better in a moment. Payment was done in stickers of the little pictures. Questionnaire. This is important. We had some good idea of the demographics, the size of the house, the place of birth. Then we had this, which is nomination. We were asking children to nominate 3 things. One, who was their best friend. They have an option of 5, so they should put the best friend at the top and then go down to the 5th best friend. Then who they will normally play with at school, and then who they would ask help for homework. So we have 3 indices of network. Of course, these are different ways of looking at the network. We also have negative peer nomination and then what they do outside the school. That's what we know about these children. That's how the personality questionnaire and the KB, the IQ, was administered, all in computer. The BFQ is a Big 5 questionnaire. It's adapted for children in the late childhood. We have a 30-item questionnaire for the children and a 65-item questionnaire for the teachers. So we have this double information. The teachers were very nice with us to do this. Yes, on each child.
What's the correlation?
You will see. So this is an example of the BFQ where you get angry easily. That's what, of course, for the child, not for the teacher. The K-bit is a 48 items IQ test in 8 units. Is a complicated procedure going through it, so some children only made it to 40 questions. Administered on a computer. Sample questions are some which are very easy, which one goes with which. Some are harder like this. Okay, so that's the type of question we ask them. The ultimatum game, its standard was anonymous. They had to play 3 times. As a proposer, they had to choose between this allocation, 8 to themselves, 2 to the other, then 6 and 5. And then as a second mover, they had to decide whether they were accepting or rejecting. So it was 3 times as a first mover, 3 times as a second mover, and alternated. No feedback, paper and pencil. Sticker game is a version for children of the beauty contest. You have to put so you have to put pictures in a box. It's played against a computer. Played against a computer. You have to put pictures in a box from 1 to 5. The computer does the same. This is a simultaneous move. The player with the least number wins the pictures he has put. So if the computer puts 3, the child puts 2, the child gets 2. If there is a tie at any range, they both get 0. So the equilibrium is iterated elimination down to 0. In this case, feedback is provided after every round. The computer was programmed to bid 1 less than the bid of the child in the previous round. Okay? We told the children the computer is programmed to win as much as possible. Okay, correlation. Correlation in the calibrated study that we used is extremely low, is that. So this is extraversion, agreeableness, conscientiousness, neuroticism, openness, and intellect. Is low, and then of course becomes high for intelligence openness, because teachers can rely on the evidence that they have in class. This is not our study. This is the standard of the test we use. We do slightly better than this. This is the table of correlation. T is for teacher, C is for child. This is conscientiousness of teacher and child. So let's focus. This is, for instance, this is extraversion of child and teacher. It's higher than what they find, but still is very low. So these are noisy measurements, and there is a discrepancy between what the teachers.
Aldo, how are you handling the means? Are you taking out a separate mean for the 2 groups?
No, this is a correlation on the road.
Well, the reason I'm asking is you could imagine just mothers overrate their children. That's a mean effect, that if you took the mean out,
No.
you'd see a high correlation around the mean.
I don't think they would show.
Okay.
If we look instead of if you look at, this is a very rough graph to give you an idea. If we focus on cognitive abilities, the correlation goes up substantially. Yeah.
Do you have any idea, or do we have any idea, which of the 2 measures is better in some objective way?
No, other studies, I think, show teachers' ratings are far more predictive. When I've used them both. Yeah.
Teachers are
And
very
other traits
good.
as well.
Yeah.
But here are the experts.
Even for outcomes that are not teacher generated, like GPA, obviously there's a compound, but even for things like later on in attendance, teacher ratings are generally better as a predictor.
The one area that teachers are not as good at is neuroticism, because it has to do with sort of internal distress and.
Have people done a horse race, essentially, looking at the students' rating and the teachers' rating, and then following these people and then checking which is more predictive? What is the type of argument? What is that's the
A lot of it is concurrent rather than longitudinal, but
But some of it's too.
Some of
It
it
goes
is.
down the street.
But it's identified-
Look at wages or.
But it's identified in terms of outcomes.
Yeah.
Explanatory.
I mean, maybe not as systematically as you would like, but
But
there is
then
some
there's
clear
an additional assumption, right, that these personality traits are important for these outcomes. Maybe they are important.
They are.
No, I mean.
That's
Yes, perhaps.
What, you mean
No,
stable or
no, I mean,
important?
So this is net of the time, I'm the leader.
There's a.
Thanks. Oh, I feel relaxed a little bit, because that is a basic trade-off. Well, go ahead, I'll tell you what I
I'm
mean.
really interested, so if you think about health, for example, right, there's this distinction between objective and subjective. It's not totally clear what is the better measure, right? Even if you had physical measures, if I feel unhealthy or something, it may be more predictive for later outcomes, even though I'm perfectly healthy and objective standards. So is there any way to have an objective measure of personality to which that could be compared to other than outcomes? Other than, say, later or contemporary?
I'm not sure what that means.
I know.
Even the outcome of these,
I know, but-
so these are all outcomes, these tests.
But you know what I mean?
More information is always better, so you just look at it.
Well, no, but I think we're getting at a really big point. I guess Tim will talk about this more, but, you know, but I don't see the difference between outcome measures and tests in a conventional sense.
I understand.
Tests are outcomes, so they're just other,
And
they're generally around the same factors.
What's the reliability for the child tests? Are they low? That might explain some of this pretty.
The internal reliability
Correct,
is
yeah.
often very low.
Yeah, they're just, it's hard for children to report.
Right. It's yeah.
Okay, so what I learned is that there's a basic trade-off. Children know more. So sometimes teachers were returning us the questionnaire and say, you are asking me whether he looks at scientific documentaries on TV. I have no idea. So from this point of view, the child knows more. On the other hand, of course, there is a lot of self-deception because I can tell you what we know on this. So this is openness and conscientiousness, teacher and child, and this is the math score in the final exam. Now, you have to take into account that the teacher knows the math score. So he's using that. In fact, some of the questions are, does he understand the explanation of math? So on the other hand, look at this. This is the correlation of the math final with the openness of the teacher, and this is of the child. So on things on which the teacher has evidence, it seems to me that the teacher has, the teacher index is more reliable. Slightly less for the K-bit, but even for the K-bit there is. And then there is, I want to just point out that there is a very high correlation between conscientiousness and openness on both for teacher and children. Okay, so we tend to use the teacher's measure. Ultimatum game. This is a table. Okay, table. This is what they do in the first, and there what they do with the second. So 83 chose 8-2 in the first and in the second. So if you look at the aggregate, they start high with 8-2, and then they go down. So this is how many chose 8-2 in the first, how many they chose 8-2 in the second. But there is a fair amount of mixing. So we have to look at both what they do in the first, which is the more closer to what we had in the Minnesota study, what they do after they think about the game and they decide what to do, and then what they do on average. So if you look at the order logit for the first offer, you see what you expect on male and age, still going down, even if the age range now is only really between 7 and 8 here.
Why would you expect that?
Excuse me?
Why would you expect that offers go down?
On age?
Yeah.
On age.
You mean, I mean, that all depends on second mover behavior, right?
So
You mean go down, meaning from 8-2 to 6-4 to 5-5, right?
yes, yes.
But why should that be optimal
No, sorry, it goes down.
over time?
No, wait. Let's specify. Go down. Go down. You offer less to the other the older you are.
And does that make sense?
It doesn't make sense.
No, does that make sense?
That's the general trend we find if we go from age 3 to age 8.
I mean, but you need some intelligence to understand that if people are fair, they would reject anything below 40% or so. It's not payoff maximizing to offer A2. It's, I mean, not in adults at least. And therefore, I'm not sure why I would expect a negative trend in age. In fact, I would have expected exactly the opposite. They should become more fair for two reasons: because fairness is increasing, plus they have a better understanding
of human nature, I think.
And they have a better understanding of empathy and second mover behavior, social norms, etc.
Okay, let me tell you a crude fact. If you look at the time evolution from age 3 to age 8, and now if you look from the age 7 to 8, in basically matching pennies, the trend is to be deceitful and mistrustful over the years.
But not in social preferences in general.
Telling you what they do when you describe this as a game.
No, I'm referring to papers, other papers, not my own work. Other papers.
10 minutes.
Well, people become better at deception as they get older.
They understand.
They're very innocent when they're young and deceptive.
Right, because it's a social skill to be deceptive, right? So
It is.
to be
That's
effective-
what I'm trying to communicate
Yeah.
here.
So that's why
So, no, I think
challenging
you're right.
out the thing is necessary.
There's a paper in Nature, I think, cross-sectional data about kids, they become more egalitarian all the time in distribution.
But they can
Those
also
are
be
two
more
different
deceitful.
skills, though. Yeah.
So both, there's two trends here, that's all.
First mover behavior is significant anyways. I mean, the second mover behavior would be much more informative about social preferences.
Would you call game?
There's evidence that people do.
What term do I use? Job. I will tell you the Italian term is job, we tell them as a game. I'm sorry, maybe you didn't understand your
Do
question.
you just say, we're going to play a game now, or do you say, we're going to play the money game?
We're going to play games.
Just play a game.
Have you asked them why they made the choices they made?
Yes, and we always do, and we always have answers like, it's a nice day today, I have resisted, I like, I am fan of Italy. You can try to answer it, you can use it. I mean, this is true also for age, for the average. So we don't get anything from the personality traits. This even if we try the children. And we get the same pattern if you look at the average. So that's what we find. And it's perfectly in line with what we had found in the Minnesota study. Let me go to the stickers game, which has a nice twist. Maybe we find a compromise. Stickers game. So, okay, it's a beauty contest. This is offer in the first, this is on average. So it really seems to go down to 0. There is a twist, like in a Minnesota study, this is the scatter plot. If you look at the age and the offer, how much they put in the first round, not much here, but you see it's very high, and then this is the first. The first. And then squashes down to 0, and then there is an interesting twist up here, which is significant. So if you look at low, if you start to interpolate, that's what you find, and it's really going up here. And the only reason we see this is because they understand this is, if it is played with another person, you understand, you may start to think, well, this is really a repeated game. So we can start to play higher, and it's mutually advantageous. So we wanted to see whether this happens, and this in part replicates. So if you compare, although there is a general trend of going down to 0 over this is still a Minnesota study. Age, and interaction with IQ. The basic picture doesn't change here. Again, we don't find, we put agreeable and consciousness, the other trait don't do anything. the most significant is male and math final score. Not much coming from origin. This is the average. Okay, so now this changes. Now the effect of age on the average offer over the 6 times that they play pushes it up. And I think it's reflecting this phenomenon. That's an interpretation. Of course, it's strange because they are playing against the computer. So now, on the average, the personality traits do what you expect. Agreeableness is positive, conscientiousness is negative. Popularity measures. I still have what? Now I have 5 minutes. Okay. The best friend is the cleanest, is a clean measure because it doesn't involve whether you get help from someone or whether you play with him. Distribution is like this. Let's look. If you look at Italian and mixed copy, of course, they are more popular. There is a reduction of the popularity index typically for children that are, let's say, coming from abroad. I think it's more interesting to look at how at this table, these are just the numbers, I'll give you the structure. So these are the countries of origin. This is how many Italian there are and how many of these Italian point to an Italian, Chinese, Moroccan, Albanian, and so on as a best friend. And then you can look at the distribution. So this is distribution of Italian, Chinese, and Moroccan in the population. And this is for the Italian, how many point to an Italian, to a Chinese, to a Moroccan as a best friend. Is the structure clear? So a difference between these and these is telling us how much people tend to prefer Italian over others. So if we think of the test that people choose best friend randomly according to distribution, there is clearly a pattern. For instance, look at Chinese tending to prefer Chinese in a substantial way when they look at best friend. So there is a force that is pushing in isolation. On the other hand, so if you look at, excuse me? If you look at the effect of math grade, this I think is interesting. This is the same structure. This is grade 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10 in math. So we are really asking the following question. Do you choose your friend because he has the same nationality or if it has a similar IQ? We find that both forces are in action. And when you go to grade, people with higher math score tend to be more popular. For instance, compare the distribution of how many are chosen as friends when have a 6 and how many there are. How many they are chosen as best friend when they have a 7, how many there are. And then it goes up. So the same thing happens for the popularity index, which is a mixed measure. It tends to take into account both the best friend and the popularity in sport and help. If you do the regression, the profile on the score in math, you see this positive effect. People with higher IQ tend to be more popular. I have to run to the. How much time do I have now?
1.
Let me go to no. So let me go to the conclusion. We confirmed the finding that by the age 6 to 7, there is an understanding of equilibrium behavior in games, explained as a game. Cognitive ability has played a substantial part of the strategic behavior. Personality enter through agreeableness and conscientiousness at this age, in particular in the average offer in the stickers game. And then this twin effect, both factors are important on the shaping of links among children. Regional origin is important, IQ is important. We have not yet completed the analysis of how personality traits affect this. Okay? Thanks.
I think this starts to go at the discussion with Armin earlier. What was the responder behavior in the ultimatum game among 6, 7, and 8-year-olds? So what offers would they accept versus reject? And do you have any data on the proposers' expectations about, do you have any data on their predictions of, I think most people will accept 2, 4, or 5?
Responder responds optimally to his own choice in the first move. So they tend to, if they have a low optimally, if they have a low offer, they say, I will reject it. That's the only pattern we find in the second move.
So if the responder offers, if they offered a 2, they would accept 2?
Yeah.
And if they offer 5,
they tend to. They tend to. They tend to accept. They tend to take this as a game. They understand there is a position which is due to the structure of the game, in which the proposer has an advantage, and respond optimally to that.
I mean, one potential problem here really is this role reversal. I understand perfectly why you do it for data playing both roles. It's known that it's very difficult for people to really understand which role they are in later, and they get mixed up by saying, look, I was fair to this guy, but now I'm accepting it, so I kind of cancel this out. I understand this is perfectly stupid, but even in adults, things like that happen. So I would have run that differently, just in one role.
So do you think it affects also at least I can say I have what they do as in the first role? Is the confusion coming because they have 2 games, or because when they get to the second one, they're confusing it with the first?
I guess it's the role confusion.
Okay, I'm trying to say, if you look at what they do in the first role, I think I can safely assume that it's not. No, it's not. So I lose. It's a way of using the data in an efficient way.
Let's go back to your first concept of strategic theory of mind. Just want to understand what this is and how it's different from just plain old-fashioned theory of mind, which seems to be something that kind of kicks in a little earlier on, age 3, 4 maybe. So what does strategic theory of mind add to it? What's the extra skill that we get?
The starting point was exactly that. It seemed a puzzle that theory of mind at the level that is needed to understand this game develops by age 4, and we still see behavior that is not consistent with the understanding of the strategic situation at age 5 or even 6. So if you look at the analysis of the strategic decision that you're making in a game, you realize that it is involving a little bit more than understanding what the other is thinking, but a slightly more complicated and completely different faculty, which is the ability of thinking, oh, I will do this. That's the first step. Let me do it in the first step. I will do this. I use theory of mind to understand he will think exactly the same thing. And now there is the ability to make recursive thinking. Now you have to use this output as the input for the next step. That is, he is doing that, but then the thing that I was thinking to be optimal in the first step is not optimal.
Yes, I'm sorry, I'll just...
So just in simple terms, theory of mind is this understanding that we have by the time we're 3 or 4, that other people are agents, and they have beliefs, and they have motives, and those things, or desires, those things motivate their behavior. It sounds like strategic theory of mind pushes that forward to anticipate in the future how those how those desires and beliefs might change from one move to the next. And so it's more a matter of extending basic theory of mind forward into an imagined scenario in the future where I do this and then he's going to think that and then I'm going to think this. Is that really what it is then? More of a future step-by-step thing?
Sort of. The emphasis is not on future. The emphasis is the ability to use the output of a first step of thinking. I will do this, and then he will do that. And then you have to use the prediction that you have on the behavior of the others as the input in the next step of reasoning. What happens if you put these two things together? That's what you do, for instance, when you do iterated elimination. The combination of and both faculties seem to develop around age 4 to 5. So we were finding this puzzle. Why these two separate faculties seem to emerge earlier than age 6 to 7? I would say 7 is the age in which this emerges. And then we thought, well, integrating these two abilities, the ability to think that the others have a thought process, and then the ability to make complicated reasoning, but really is the ability to use the output of a step as an input in the next step, which we can define as recursive thinking. The combination of these two requires an extra year, 2 years. Is that, I'm trying to understand, we were trying to explain.
I don't know, when I think of theory of mind, I don't think of it as just being able, just knowing that other people have thought processes. I mean, it's more than that. I mean, it's knowing that those thought processes then motivate what they do. And it seems to me that what you're talking about then is you have that, and then you kind of imagine this hypothetical scenario where this will lead to this, will lead to this, so this imagined plan about how two agents will relate. And that's why it takes longer to get. You know, that's why the portals can't do it, because it's extended forward in an imagined future scenario. Just a different way maybe of saying somewhat similar things.
I think we agree, but I'm just trying to say that this ability to make a complicated thought process is, you can think of theory of mind of the first order. I think this, and I understand that he has a different, for instance, if you have a different information, he may look at the situation in a slightly different way. Now think of what happens in a zero-sum game in the matching pennies. You have a process that if you look at how do you infer the Nash equilibrium, it never stops. It's an infinite process. So you really have to deal with this, which is a completely new dimension in thinking. Yes.
So one of the things in social psychology is that how you frame, this is what Dane was alluding to earlier, how you frame these games has large effects on people's behavior. If you call it the Wall Street game, people are much more competitive than if you call it the community game. So how do we know here that it's really a development in children's ability to understand the strategic dimensions of the game rather than the changing construals that they might have of the game, where they're changing more around what is appropriate or good behavior? Or do we not?
It's something that we are trying to dig deeper into it, because it involves, maybe I'm rephrasing your question in slightly different terms, is it moral or strategic? So are you willing to lie, or is it allowed to lie? And so there is the question of, are you simply understanding that some moral behavior in some environments are allowed? And when we explain the game, we try to explain the game as a competitive game. I mean, we try to take away the moral dimension out of it. Of course, we can do it only up to a point. So the real question is, at this point, is how much the moral and the cognitive part. I mean, the most interesting insight that is coming from here is, what is the difference between lying and being mistrustful? And we are trying to identify when is that these two behaviors appear differently. Because you can understand that mistrustful is a way of saying, well, if someone is lying to me, then I can be mistrustful.
Yes, well, so relatedly.
I have a question from Rich. I remember you have. Can I address her?
I can come back to it. It's a short.
Well, just so theory of mind doesn't stop at the false belief task that Wellman and Liu in 2004 have a progression, right? desires and their beliefs, and then second order. And so if the theory here is that you either do or don't have these more advanced theory of mind abilities, why aren't you measuring those at 6 and 7 and showing that kids who fail the more advanced theory of mind tasks are also the ones who are behaving strategically? Because, and I guess I make this point because it could be that older kids are learning more quickly. Oh, the researchers want me to do this, and that what you're picking up is their ability to pick up on all the implicit norms that you're supposed to win, and so that's why you have all the etudes. And they're figuring out what they. So it's not a prediction about the other players; it's a prediction about what I'm supposed to do in the game. And so it seems like but that's an empirical question, right?
Yeah, this is an empirical question. So the theory of mind, what we know is it develops really of an arch that it goes from 4 to 8 and in increasing degree of complexity. It starts, yes. For instance, if you ask, the most elementary is, you like carrots, does that imply that he likes carrots? The most elementary is appears age 3.5, 4. That maybe there's differences. What we can tell from the cognitive point of view of the task that we use is what is developed by the age 4, 4.5. So there is really an issue of why this gap. That's all I am trying to say.
Tasks that kids don't have.
No, we didn't do that.
Well, the second order theory of mind.
Yeah, the Lululemon, they had that progression where you don't pass all the tasks with 100% until like 7.
Yeah.
So you could have looked at individual differences in later tasks.
Yeah.
Yeah, so some of my question was actually just answered, but this is actually more comment on this bit about friendship networks. And so it strikes me that this particular exercise is sort of fixed in one particular point in time in American history. So if you were to look 50 years ago, American history. Yeah. So if you were to look 50 years ago, there would be distinctions among Protestant groups, and so at one point Irish were not considered mainstream, and Italians were considered mainstream. So that we've got a little snapshot of American history with this particular set of distinctions. And if you look out through American history, there's various groups. We no longer think about people being along ethnic and racial lines, or certain ethnicities. It's no longer considered to be an ethnic minority. So I think it's just a little bit of how we understand this idea of these friendship networks. 50 years from now, we'll look at this and say, boy, were people even thinking like that? The way we now people look back and before Protestant denominations were actually a big deal. So I just think we should be a little bit careful about how we understand these social distinctions. They're really fixed in a historical moments.
Yeah, yes and no. I think, are they distinctions that the children accept as relevant? And I think they do. It's not particularly strong at this age, but when these children will be 14, I guarantee you that being Chinese and Italian is going to be strongly relevant.
No, but I'm saying
for them.
Yeah, but
then in 50 years from now, we'll say, well, come on, what's the difference? I agree. We, not they.
No, you're missing my point. So if you were to ask somebody...
I don't think so.
Well, perhaps I'm not sure, but...
Once again, you missed.
Yeah, so I'm not sure, but if you were to ask, so if you asked in particular elementary schools, the distinction between different Protestant denominations, now the kids will not even understand that there's a difference. Or if you asked 50 years ago children about Protestant denominations, they would think they had a distinction. So the point is what we think of as distinct changes over time. That's the point. And so 50 years from now, if we were to use the words Asian or whatever words you had up there, people might not think in those terms. Children 50 years from now, not these kids 50 years from now.
Yes, but you would agree that, maybe I'm missing your point, but you would agree that now, today, if children leave that distinction as relevant, that distinction is relevant and has to be in my analysis. Maybe he got... Yes.
I think we have probably time for one more.
Two more. He promised I was going to get it.
Mine's really quick. It's just related to some of the comments before. It seemed like it could be interesting to in some treatment tell children, it's good to be fair. Just say something like that, and then study at different ages that, like maybe at a young age, people don't know what that means. And then when they get older...
Literally, just like point blank, it's good to be fair?
Well, just if I was really little, I wouldn't know what the heck you were talking about.
There's going to be a huge effect.
Yes, but would it differ with age? So just getting this idea that is awareness of what fairness is and what it means changing over the age range?
No, but wait, how do I distinguish that from the fact that here I am a grown-up that is suggesting a norm to a child and he will tend to follow it?
Well, I mean, norms are suggested by other people to us. I mean, I'm saying it's not surprising that there would be an effect. It would just be interesting if there was a differential effect across the age range, showing that the people, like little kids, they might not know what that, I mean, they actually could be quite the opposite, that when they're, could be that understanding of what fairness is emerges very early, and this more strategic behavior is emerging over time, and so on. But anyway, I just thought it would be either to measure directly what people think is fair, or since that's hard to do, try an intervention that would, prime fairness and see if it varied with age. But.
I have 2 quick comments on the ultimatum first mover behavior, one more time. So point 1 is, you suggest an age effect in the sense that, if I understand correctly, older people, the older they get, the more likely they are to move away from 5-5 to 8-2, right? That cannot be...
To themselves. Yes.
Yeah, to become more unfair.
It goes in the same direction, just to have a benchmark, the same direction as male. Older equals male.
Yeah.
Yes? Okay.
And that cannot be true for the whole age range, because the modal offer in ultimatum bargaining in adults is not 8-2, it's something like 6-4. That's observation 1.
In what age range?
Adults, 25 students.
Oh!
Point 2.
Yes.
Point 2.
We have, yes.
Point 2.
Yes, but I agree, but we have extended it to grown-ups, you will see.
But it cannot,
I agree.
But it cannot be a monotone function of age. It is not. I mean, it's not true. But what is more important, I think, is the interpretation of equilibrium behavior. What is your notion of equilibrium? The standard Nash selfish equilibrium? That is not the equilibrium if people have social preferences. So in order to find out whether people understand equilibrium behavior, you would have to show the responses of the second movers, calculate what is the optimal offer, and then find out whether they behave optimally given the second mover behavior. Otherwise, it makes little sense to talk about equilibrium in the first place. And then the question really is, do people understand, age-adjusted, what the second mover response really is? And from what I learned from what you said, implicitly, they don't. They have a false consensus effect going on in the sense that they think everybody's just like them. But if there's heterogeneity, that belief cannot be true, right? It cannot be true. And that means they're never reaching anything like an equilibrium outcome. And then a third comment quickly is first mover behavior is strategic plus fairness behavior. So it's very difficult to interpret in the first place. But so I was missing the second mover behavior, which is much cleaner in terms of interpreting it, not maybe equilibrium, but selfishness versus social preference.
My general comment is we made an effort here to focus on the cognitive side. So to focus on the ability of children to understand the strategic situation. That is to understand what, to go through the...
Mutation, they are reaching more, and we haven't seen equilibrium at all.
Okay, equilibrium, okay. Now, wait a minute. Equilibrium, we both know what the problem is. Equilibrium is described by game theory as behavior with respect to numbers that are utils. We don't have a control on utils. We have a control on dollars. The step from dollars to utils is open to question.
No. If my offer is rejected, A2, it's neither maximizing my monetary nor my fairness concerns. So it's strictly dominated in any word by offering 6-4 or 5-5.
It depends on what you think the nature of the game is.
I thought we talked about the ultimatum game. I mean, if you told them, look, do us a favor.
Transfer it into utils.
No, but let's assume we have a monetary incentive and a fairness motive. Then A2 is never optimal if it's rejected.
You may attach weight to the fact that in a game you don't pass as a wimp.
Sorry, we're just going to have to go to the next speakers. There'll be plenty of time to discuss this further over coffee or lunch. Yes. Or the 15-minute break. Yeah.
This is a lifetime discussion. You think coffee is enough? This is an epistemological difference.
I will exert my leadership role. Richard, you can ask the last question.
Why don't you start setting
Tim,
up?
why don't you start that?
sure.
Because you're going to have to go next.
Okay, so my question is just a factual one. Probably take you 5 seconds to answer it. So kids tend to be friends with people who are like themselves, right? Both ethnicity and
They tend to be more friendly to each
people who
other.
are like
Yes, yes. And but they differ, right? Because especially for Chinese,
in
Romanian,
and of itself, not surprised. What about gender?
Oh, I didn't even put it, of course.
I'd like to see that.
Oh, but I mean,
Right.
there's a lot of children. I mean, what did children?
At this age, networks are almost exclusively in.
Sure. Okay, so.
Yeah, no, yes.
Would you like your friends with boys, girls with girls, bright people with bright people?
On a factual thing, I was expecting much stronger segregation. So the segregation I find for the Chinese, I was expecting it to be general. Thanks.